Well, welcome everybody. Like Tim said, my name is Shad Moss. I lead up our Application Modernization group at Oakwood. And today we will be going through an application modernization exercise. And this is pretty much how we handle application modernization when we approach it. So I hope that it's helpful for you and that you'll learn a little bit from it and some of the type of work that we can actually do around it too. So we're going to start out today with a little bit of history of what's going on. So workplace transformation. So some of the trends that are going on, they're creating new challenges. And I think from a development standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, from a security standpoint, data standpoint, it's hitting us all at once. We have new apps that are out there every day and different ways to view those apps too. From a device standpoint, think about 10, 15 years ago, you didn't have your phone that was sitting there that you could view everything on, and all the nice tablets that we had. We may have had some tablets that flipped backwards, those first Microsoft tablets that came out that were kind of clunky. But today, there's all different types of form factors that are out there, and a lot of different ways to view those. We're being hit by a lot of different cybersecurity threats today too. There's a lot of viruses, a lot of mean people out there, and they're all wanting money. And so from a app standpoint, it's really hitting us hard. And then from a data standpoint, everybody wants to keep their data forever, and they want to mine it to the nth degree. So there's a huge data explosion that's going on. And then to compound that, we have the cloud computing platforms that are out there that keep competing with each other. And all those together, it's creating all kinds of challenges in app modernization. So today, I think the biggest thing is CIOs, they're no longer asking us whether or not they should use the cloud, but how they should use it. 80% of the CIOs, they're going to accelerate their platform migrations this year. And that goes across the cloud, mobile, social, and big data. And they're looking for their premature of the obsolescence IT assets that's getting ready to go out. So how do I take from what I have and then grow that, but not waiting until it just runs out, but doing it at an accelerated platform and trying to get it up there faster. A lot of the CIOs this year too, from a study, they're going to be doing cloud first strategy. So no longer is this just going to be running on servers and looking for it to run in the data center, but they're actually looking at how do I get it out there in the cloud first. So what this allows us to do is it gives us an opportunity for modernization. And through that, what we're able to do is basically drive innovation. I don't think there's been a time that I've seen in my career that's been more innovative than today. It seems like with all the devices that are coming out, all the JavaScript frameworks that we can utilize, any of the back-end components, automation, just everything is driving innovation. And all of that automation is also helping us reduce our costs. We can do a lot more with less. If we have a great team that's working towards something that helps us reduce our costs. From a security standpoint, because of all the cybersecurity threats that are out there, it's allowing us to protect our assets more than we ever have. Security is a big thing, and if you get a breach, it's not fun, and especially if you're a public company and that drives down your stock price, boy, people pay attention. But the biggest thing that modernization is really helping us do is prepare for the future. It's going to help us reach new heights, and then it's probably increasing our agility and efficiency and reliability in our data centers when we're going through a modernization exercise. So here's a little bit of the events that can help us trigger opportunities to go through a modernization exercise. Of course, software into support. Anytime the software is getting ready to go out, a big one was SQL Server 2008 or Windows Server 2008. Those allow us to go through and say, hey, what applications are on these platforms, and can I take these and move them someplace else? As the support runs out for those platforms, so does the security updates and all the different service packs. So there's no better time than when your software is at the end of its support to start thinking about a transformation. Also, contracts and licenses, whenever they come up for renewal, it's time to try to rethink and say, man, do I really still need all of these servers sitting here, or can I move these over to something else? Data center consolidation, I see a lot of this going on today, where having the footprint that we used to in the past and data centers all over, maybe we don't need all of those. And maybe I can consolidate some of those down, lower my costs, and then maybe look at some new possibilities for modernization. In protecting critical business assets, same thing with security. If you're looking at the infrastructure that it's on, security should always be top of mind on how do I protect those, and maybe through a consolidation, I tighten that up a little bit, or maybe from moving some of those around into the cloud, I certainly will get the security that I need. And then, of course, businesses are always on the need for new capabilities. So as we sit there and we think about working with different lines of businesses in each one of our organizations, there's always that one person that's there that's on the cutting edge and always using the next thing. And that person's always going to help us look and say, hey, here's what the market needs, or here's what my business users need. And then taking that functionality and turning that back around to the business and saying, hey, look what we've done that's new, and that helps us modernize our applications as well. Basically what it comes down to is it's an opportunity to transform your business. So knowing that we're spanning multiple devices, we're able to develop those apps more quickly and look at all the data that we're gathering and collecting and presenting back to users. It's really not been at a part and at a place in history that I have seen that allows us to transform faster than we are doing today. And when it comes down to it, it's security too. And all that security around all of those different areas of bringing that together. So basically, transforming our data centers is really big today. I see a lot of people going through and doing hybrid clouds. And basically, it's an on-demand scenario. It's helping you reduce your costs. You've got rapid response and also delivery of those applications. And the benefits of the hybrid cloud, it allows you to, at scale, grow your apps. Greater speed to market, of course, creates the resilience that you need, the cost efficiency, flexibility, consistency, and security around your data centers. Consolidation-wise, there's a lot of hybrid that's going on where they're still on-prem and they're moving to the cloud a little more slowly. I'm not seeing anybody just say lift and shift and be done with it. It's becoming a hybrid. Security-wise, too, this is not something that you should ever take for granted, but moving and modernizing your applications, this is a time to take a step back and take a look at the security around each one of your applications and say, hey, is there a way to make this a little bit better and faster? And can I secure this more? So let's talk a little bit about an approach. So traditional migration paths, like I said, would be a lift and shift to a new platform. So normally you would take and move to a cloud or move to a new server rack with different, and basically what we're trying to do here today, it's more enterprise modernization. And that's unlocking the potential of your applications and taking a look at what it is that you can do and what you could do and what you should do. So first thing is the approach. What you would like to do is have a set of these goals that you are going to migrate through and an approach that has PMO that's helping you govern this over the top of it. You always need people that are sitting looking at the projects and making sure things are on track while you're going through the rest of these phases. And we'll get through each one of these individually here in a minute. But just to go through each one, we're going to go through a discovery phase where we take a look at what is running on those servers, rationalize the server, look at the applications, the security that's on there, try to look at where we want to go with it and what we want to target and deploy. So by looking at the modern platforms, how do we set and make a foundation that is not just secure, but that can help us grow as we're moving along and as we're modernizing this. It's also a chance to look at the applications that are running on them too and modernize the user interface. Technologies have all changed and frameworks have all changed. So as you're moving from one platform to another, there's going to be frameworks that need to be updated. Some drivers aren't going to work on older or on the newer frameworks that are out there or targets that you're going to want to push to. So you need to look at what has changed in the market too. Form factors, of course, have changed, and you need to look at the users that are using it. And then as you're going through this, help and migrate those along. And then on the back end, you always have support. So, I always say, I know when I'm done, when the thing can run by itself. And it's not running by itself, well, then it's not done yet. And I don't have to look at it. I can just monitor it, right? So always has to be somebody there that can troubleshoot, and, managed services is a big play in that. So from a discovery standpoint, you got to understand where you're at right now. Current state is really big. So one of the things that Oakwood actually does is we help businesses just discover your business goals. This is a complimentary 2-day application modernization workshop that we do with our customers. And we go through and we help you identify your business goals and learn how this modernization can help drive you forward and towards your goals. It's just taking a look at your applications that are running out there, the environment that it's running on, and I've got some more slides here in a little bit that will get a little bit more into exactly what we do. Also, on the other side of this, as you're going through and you're discovering your server applications and security landscape, cataloging those up and rationalizing those on the servers, all the applications, any kind of dashboards and automation that you have out there, looking at the IaaS, and then also trying to find your ROI. Microsoft has a Microsoft Cloud Economic Assessment that is available, and it's usually Microsoft has some money that they throw around at it all the time, where they kind of look at the load that you may have, and they may throw in some money. But this is also another path that we like to go down too, and it's a little bit more in depth. It goes through and it really looks and catalogs out all the applications, all the servers, looks at the workload that's on those servers, and then tries to do like a one-for-one. If you were to migrate these workloads, what that would look like footprint-wise out in Azure, and kind of give you some price estimates. After you go through this phase, you'd go into a target and you're going to deploy, right? So it's kind of standing up your infrastructure of what that's going to be, whether or not that's going to be on-prem too, or if it's going to be a hybrid, or if it's going to be in the cloud. Application-wide, you put that out there, make sure that things are running, run through your security identity testing and everything, and then make sure that from an operations standpoint that all the governance is set in place too. Next is Modernize and Migrate. So a lot of server migration, a lot of app migrations, or extensions of those too. It's not just that you do it, but there may be some different extensions in the other public clouds or another solution. Also in application modernization, this is a time to start looking at, do I have any functionality that's out there that I could migrate to maybe platform as a service? So as you're moving, most people think, well, I'm just rehosting. In each cloud platform, there are different services that are out there that are available that you would call into, and it's not just like you spin up a server and you pay for it as it's sitting there running, but these are called, and as they're called, X number cost X number of dollars. And if I do 1 million of them, well, then it's a penny or something. It's kind of cool as you sit and look at all the services that are out there and everything that you can use, and you start reimagining these applications and modernizing them in this way of what you can take advantage of. And we'll go through a little bit more of that in a minute. Identity migration, a lot of people using Azure AD today, a lot of business-to-business type integrations too. So migrating those identities, making sure that the people that are out in your Active Directory are Still relevant. A lot of contractors I think I've seen in some of these migrations, people that aren't there that should be, jettisoned out of there, and just a lot of integration when it comes in migration for identity. Database migration, big move right now. How do I get my data to where it's still fast and I can use it in the cloud? You can always do back to on-prem, you do web services. There's a little lag that's there. But cool thing about it is Azure already has a SQL Server built into it. And it already has Oracle out there. And it already has MySQL. So depending on what you're using, those solutions are already out there. You can run it on a Linux server. You can run it on a Windows server. And then from a platform standpoint, they have Azure SQL that allows you to just use it as a platform. And you don't even have to have a server. So a lot of different modernization opportunities when it comes to how do I migrate my data. Of course, from a support standpoint, we kind of talked about this earlier. You're not done until you know that it's performing correctly, and then you don't get calls in the middle of the night. You don't get those alerts on your phone at 2 in the morning and says the system's down. So always looking at the platform performance and trying to optimize those. Staff training is huge. Trying to get everybody trained up on new technology, it's a daunting task, and it's something that Oakwood helps out on. So how do I take advantage of these newer technologies and still have my staff be able to support these? A lot of people, they do with what they know. And as modernization comes around and new frameworks come around, I don't see a big adoption of these. Just because we've done it this way and that's the way I've always done it. It takes a different person to come in that knows some of these technologies, and usually we kind of do like a train the trainer type thing, and we've also do some classroom type where we get everybody up there and try to teach them some of these newer technologies. I think also from a developer support, any kind of application reviews and monitoring and performance testing is huge, and that's where DevOps comes in. And with DevOps, you can help automate up some of those testings, certainly from a coding standpoint, going through and looking at how my code is, monitoring from the testing perspective. Did I degrade the system with this last update? Doing some smoke testing on some bugs, things like that. All those things can be automated up. So making sure that they have the right support from a DevOps perspective it's key to a successful implementation of any modernization. From a managed services standpoint, you don't want to be doing this and getting those calls at 2 or 3 in the morning. So it's great to find a managed service partner that can help you. And Oakwood can certainly help out with that. From a PMO type standpoint, you always, like I said, you always need these guys to help and speed this project along. Whether or not you have these guys or not, we can step in. We have our own PMO that can help you run these projects, or we can have some of our PMO help you stand up the project timelines so that you're making sure that you're looking at the path to success the way that we do. When we come in, we always like to identify risks, and then we look at the tasks that have been laid out before us, and we analyze and we prioritize those and help plan and schedule those and track and report, and then manage the effectiveness of what it is that we're doing. If we change at any point in the course of running one of these projects, so does the plan. And reporting's big back on this too, is just being able to turn this back around and being transparent. So I always like to say, hey, if it's me, how do I really get started with something like this? And I hear all the time, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to move to the cloud, and I have no idea where even to start. Or I'm going through a modernization right now, and I really don't know where to start. I think when you're looking at a modernization, it goes through 4 different phases, and some would argue a 5th. But it would be a rehosting, a refactoring, a re-architecting, or a rebuilding. And the 5th would be a replace. I don't really look at that as modernizing it. If you want to swap out what we were doing before with something new that somebody made, that's great. But that doesn't keep me employed, which I like to modernize and I like to build something new and something great, you know. But across that, you also have the three areas that we always have to go through, which is the application itself, the data that it consumes, and the infrastructure that it stands on. So each one of those is going to be something that you have to look at as you're going along through here. It's fairly easy, I would say, to rehost something out in the cloud. If you're wanting to modernize, I'm going to pull something out of one environment and I'm going to throw it up in the cloud. I'm going to change some connection strings, do some testing, and should work, right? I think a little bit after that, you're going to start refactoring some of the areas that are inside of it. And as you go through, you may even re-architect to take advantage of some of the PaaS offerings that are out there. Or you may say, hey, this is so old, we're just going to rebuild it or make a brand new one of something. And I think as you go through, you see each one of these and the different strategies. There are different drivers to each one of them as why you would want to do each one of these. Of course, you know, rehosting, you're going to reduce some CapEx. That's a big one. And it's a quick ROI in everybody's eyes of we're not on our data environment or in our data center anymore. We're up in the cloud now. And we don't have that. We free up that space and we don't have all that space. And we don't have to do all the maintenance on those servers anymore. You know, refactoring allows you to do a lot of different things. But I think the biggest thing is your cloud efficiency. With the resources and the speed and the cost, you can refactor any of your applications that are out there to take advantage of all the PaaS services that are there. Running things in containers, for instance, or being able to scale up just because you moved a batch job over to try to take advantage of some of the batch processing that's out in the cloud. Re-architecting, great way to scale up. Also from, I think, an adaptability standpoint, allows you to look at the way that you are using the cloud and the capabilities. You can also mix technology stacks in there. I know a lot of different solutions are using a little bit of Windows something here, and then an open source Java for this, and having those be able to run in the same environment, it's very powerful. And of course, rebuilding again, you know, faster innovation. So one of the places where Oakwood comes in and truly helps is this whole rehosting and refactoring. We do have an Oakwood migration factory that allows us to run through, look at that infrastructure, help you prioritize each one of those servers and applications that are on there. There's an architectural review that's kind of done back and forth between infrastructure and your app team. We try to look at the cost and optimize that for the resources and the costs that you're trying to get to, or even help you realize how to optimize those and reduce the cost or what it is going to cost. And then from a lift and a shift standpoint, helping you come up with the plan on how do I take advantage and move this over to there. And then at the same time, from an app dev standpoint, optimize and refactor that. And then, of course, there's a warm handoff back to your team to be able to support those, or even we can support it from a managed services standpoint. I think some of the learnings that we've done from, you know, big at-scale Azure migrations is going through a process like what we've just laid out helps you be successful. And we're always going in and doing an assessment first, the discovery phase, and helping you just build up that inventory and applications and databases, and looking at the applications that are on there and learning from the departments how they're using those, how they're consuming the data or the databases reports. From that list, coming up with a good list of POC candidates. There's nothing better to show and prove that something works than to look and say, hey, here's some low-hanging fruit, or it could even be the opposite. Here's one that's really hard, and if we can prove that this one works, well, everybody else is going to bite off on this. But each one's assigned a priority, of course, and then, you know, the higher security apps, you know, there may be a little bit more with that, but, you know, basically what they're going to have is we're going to redesign every app for Azure, for the cloud. And during the migration, to using the right tools, and then trying to move those over. Plans are always involving the business at every step. And the biggest thing is demanding some testers for these things. Whenever you've got the workload that's there, we can all say that it works, but I think from a business standpoint, we've all thought that something has worked before in the past, and then you're like, oh, well, it would have been really great if I'd had a business user here. And then one of the things too is we don't have any Monday madness that goes on. We don't do our things in the middle of the weekend and say, hey, on Monday morning. We like to do them like a Friday across the weekend. That way it makes it look like, hey, you're a little bit more proactive and everything. From an optimization standpoint, you're always looking to optimize whatever it is that you're doing. So as we're going through each one of these, making sure that you're not spending anything that you should not be. So going through a modernization and trying to look at the server cost is really big, but also how do I save money on the back end? So reserving instances, that can save you up to 80% of just not having it out there and running all the time and paying per month. You reserve those, and then you kind of have a true up at the end where, wow, you saved all this money and you saved some too. And it's just prepayment of it. Also, from an automation standpoint, any VMs that aren't needed 24/7, you can have auto shut off where it just goes out and it shuts them off. And then anytime that you're doing backups in storage and snapshots, there's a different strategy for those. From a security standpoint and a manageability standpoint, anything to do migrations is great, but having a partner out there that can help you with this, like Oakwood, we do these all the time. So we've got backups of clients' environments. We utilize a huge Azure automation library of IP that we've developed over in the past, which is a lot of different scripts. We've done a lot with Terraform and Chef and Ansible, a lot with Azure DevOps to be able to automate up some of the managing part of it and the security part of it to be able to come back down. We're also utilizing tools like the Azure Security Center, and then we go through the logs and application insights of all the applications and try to help you narrow in on what needs to be looked at and making sure that we're on top of all those logs. So earlier I talked about the 2-day application modernization, the one that was complimentary, and kind of what we go through. We've kind of went through a little bit, but I'll go through it in a little bit more detail. This is a 2-day exercise where we come in, and of course right now it would probably have to be something that was virtual, but it's to take a look at what you have going on right now and try to help you come up with a journey that's going to be successful. So it's coming in and basically doing a business level set, an introduction to application modernization and understanding your capabilities of what you have now, your case for app modernization, or even helping you come up with that business case for app modernization, laying out our application modernization framework, and then looking at from others that we know that's in your industry, kind of what they are doing, any insights that we can glean into your application portfolio, and then try to help you build up a business case of why you should do this and what you should do, how it would deliver business value, and then lay out some key activities and tasks. So like I said, 2 days, usually in the morning to early afternoon, a few breaks in between, a couple days. But the biggest thing is just going through your environments. Take a look at it, talk to some different stakeholders that are there, looking at the work streams that these applications use. And maybe it's you take a chunk of them, and hopefully it's not hundreds because that take more than a couple days, but let's say, few. And then go through a findings workshop of, hey, here's what we have, and here's some things that we need to do. But what's going to come out of it is a definition of what your current state is of work streams and any of those opportunity areas. We do a lot of whiteboarding, and this is a big thing. Trying to understand what it is that you have out there, why you're using it, any areas that you see for optimization and modernization, areas that we would see from a modernization standpoint, since this is what we do all day long. and then how you can help mitigate any of those risks that were there, any of the knowns that we have seen, and then maybe a path to get there. So from a work stream assessment, we'll write down what's working well, any challenges and opportunities. We do this also from a data perspective. So how is this being consumed, and how are you turning it around, and where's some challenges or opportunity areas for those? And then we help you come up with some success criteria. So I think one of the biggest things that I have seen from customers too is as you get into Azure, and this is, if you guys don't know, a nice summed up picture of some Azure services. Of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but as you start thinking about how you're going to consume this, here's pretty much everything that's out there. It's I think overwhelming at times, and unless you're using it and you know what these are, you really don't know what they are. And you can always read up on it, or you can work with a person, a place like Oakwood that already knows all of these, and it helps with the migrations and as we go through and help align these. So as we go through this 2-day, what we're trying to do is help you look at this map and come back down to and say, hey, from what you have out there, I think your existing .NET apps should be running out on an Azure App Service, and here's why. Or it could be, hey, you should use the Kubernetes service that's out there and throw these up in there as some containers. You should use the Azure Service Fabric and use those as a service bus, because you have a service bus that's over here, or you've got existing web service calls that can be used across many. Always using Azure functions to call around. It's a great way to have some code that's sitting out there that you're just going to call into to get a thing. Or using Azure Batch, like I said before, to do large-scale batch services. We've all done batch services. They work well. They're tried and true. Well, Azure has that out there, and it works even better. I think from a data standpoint, modernizing that, a lot of people still want to keep that data on-prem, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can set an express route that goes back down. You can have set up, but you're also going to have network latency that's sitting there. But moving that over and eliminating, trying to get that up in the cloud, that's where you go through an Azure database migration service. So Azure has some services that are out there today that help you migrate your databases. You can always move those over to a VM. It's pretty fast migration, minimal charges, but not all apps would use that, or they may not be eligible for it. And it also depends on how you've set up your database too. From a managed instance standpoint, from a PaaS, it's already got built-in high availability. It already does scaling, and it's already got all the updates. And I usually push people kind of over there into that. You've got no more hardware, and you've got no more administration costs. But there's also some factors that are in that where indexing has to be a certain way, and you have to have, so many of this that's in there. And I think as we run through some scripts, it really helps us look at opportunity areas to modernize any of the databases that are out there too. So we talked a little bit about the Azure Cloud Economic Assessment. This is the one that Microsoft lends some money into. They kind of help out. As you look at the workload that you have out there, they may throw some money at this too for you. But basically it goes through and it looks at all the servers that are sitting out there and it analyzes them. So by a total number, and this is just an example, by a total number of scope that you have out there, it'll look at and split up in the pricing. So if you were to do like a monthly pay-as-you-go, it's one option. But if you right-sized it up and did a per month, that's looking at the load that's supposed to be on those servers and not just paying for the normal one, but really looking at what it is that you need because of the load that you have. Or you've got an option 3 that you can do where it's a little bit different. So you've got different options that are in there. You do a 3-year. Then also looking at storage that was out there too. 3-year reserved, like I said, if you pay for those, it's always cheaper. It's the way that Microsoft has always done business. You do it in volume or you do it in lengths of contracts. You don't have to, you can pay month by month, but it certainly helps you save. And like in this model, it could help you save about 88% over your cost that you would on just taking it out month by month. And the support workloads are huge. You could, out in Azure, they still support SQL Server 2008, and they're also doing 2008 on Windows Server. Out there, they've got different options. So if you're looking to modernize those, but you don't have the bandwidth right now, we could help you move those workloads out there and take advantage of these. So that's always an option out there, but it's one of the items that's in on the economic assessment too, is to try to say, hey, if you were to just move this over, here's how much it would be. From an environmental overview, like I said, it does go through, and like in this one, there were 16 different servers that were arced up and looked at, and it looks at CPU utilization, the RAM of those, storage, and it goes through a lot of different metrics. Another thing that it helps us do too is helps you migrate and manage your risk. So as you look at risk, it looks at whether or not the updates have been done on your servers and whether or not they're in compliance, and if it's missing any kind of innovation opportunities, things that are supposed to be on there. But basically, it over on the right, what it's allowing us to do is say, hey, not only can you modernize to Azure, but you can also modernize to on-premise. So if you're wanting to upgrade your on-premise, and say if you want to do your SQL Server to a different version, well, here's what it would be. Or if you're wanting to modernize that to Azure, here's what it would be. So different paths. They're not really pushing straight to Azure, but they're trying to, of course, get some kind of licensing update and show you how to help you save some money somewhere. The other thing that allows you to do is do non-production environments. So everybody wants the beefiest one that's out there. Well, for a non-production environment, it's pretty cheap. And when you're looking at servers and how much it costs to do a data center and all the servers and everything that goes along, electricity, cooling, backups, blah, 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 all of that, it gets pretty pricey. So for a non-production environment, it's fairly cheap if you're looking for some server space that's out there. You can also take advantage of the PaaS services too. So we talked a lot about app modernization across servers and code and taking advantage of any of those. But one of the big things too is from a DevOps perspective and making sure that these guys are modernized as well. I think from a support standpoint, it's always good to look at the process that you're going through from a development. And Oakwood also offers an Azure DevOps 1-hour briefing. We also do discovery, a 2 to 5 day engagement where we look at your code management processes, try to help understand where you're at and what your current needs are. We do some DevOps migrations where you're moving from one code repository, maybe it's TFS, maybe it's something else, into Azure DevOps. And then if you're already using Azure DevOps, kind of a maturity engagement. But coming up with a continuous improvement process is key in helping software development move faster. So if you look at the diagram that's there, moving through and doing development, you would say, wow, this is great. Well, this is what you're trying to do. You're always wanting to develop. You want some source control management that's out there. You're wanting some automated builds, some code quality checks on that. And then if everything works out okay, well, then I may want to automatically provision up my environment. I should be scripting that out so that it's infrastructure as code, and I can stand those up and provision those environments out. I don't know how many times that I've heard from one environment to the other of, well, it worked back here in dev and it doesn't work in QA. You guys have probably all heard it too. But if I automatically provision those environments out, no one can say it wasn't set up correctly. And from a configuration management standpoint, those things can be pushed out as well. So having those at configuration as code and infrastructure as code is key. But that does the automatic deployment of those. So when I need it, I spin those environments up. I can run some automatic acceptance tests up against it because QA has recorded all of those. And I can run some automatic performance and load tests because they've been done before. I can have a release management sign off on those, and then maybe that goes out to a prod environment. But as it gets released, we're always monitoring, and we're looking at any of the logs that are out there, any of the application performance management that comes from application insights, and feeding that right back into either PMO or a lead developer, and that basically says, hey, I've got a bug or I need to improve some performance out here. I'm going to put it back in the plan, and then that goes through the grooming, backlog grooming again. And we just keep through and going through this continuous improvement process. This is what we try to bring to the table from a DevOps perspective. So anyway, that's pretty much our app modernization push and discussion for today. We talked about a lot of things. We're going to be going through some more and going into each one of those a little bit more in length in future events. But right now, does anybody have any questions? Don't everybody talk at once.
Yeah, as we're waiting for questions, just another thank you for joining us during your lunch hour. And Shad, thanks for the great information. I'll be working over the next day or two to make sure we get this video ready and out to everybody that registered. But again, I think that complimentary workshop is kind of a great what's next step. Love to have a further conversation with anybody that's interested in that. Anybody out there have a question? And I'll also say that next week, I think Shad will be doing a webinar on DevOps, more particularly looking at boards. And we should have that up on our events page, hopefully by tomorrow. And then we'll be scheduling out the rest of our May webinars as well.
Yeah, I think before that one, I think the one that I was going to do first was the application modernization. I think it was the rehosting one. So I'm trying to break up these app modernization ones into more consumable chunks. So I think it was the rehosting.
Gotcha, you're right. My apologies.
And then the refactoring, and getting into the key areas of each one of these. It's very important. And like I said, there's a lot of things that are out there and a lot of things that you should be looking for and going through modernization. But I am coming up with one for the Azure DevOps, of course, too. We've got the normal Azure DevOps that we've done, but I want to break those into and try to show the power that Azure DevOps brings to the table. So I think first one is going through the boards. You're right. Yep.
Got it. Well, if nobody has any questions, I'll give you about 10 minutes back. Again, appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see you again at some of our upcoming events. If you have any questions, of course, you can email Shad directly at smoss@oakwoodSys.com, and we will let you all go. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.